Okay. Okay. So we'll go with human resources. But we can mention that you were directly reporting to the director
Yeah.
and filling in the place for two human resources journalists that had left the organization.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. So okay, that's okay with you, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So what for this? Yeah, we were mentioning what sort of roles and responsibilities were you overseeing for this particular role, and what did you do on a day-to-day basis? You mentioned that you were basically doing everything.
Yeah.
So
I was
yeah,
literally the human resource department for Sprint.
yeah,
For
okay,
that third party at Sprint. But yeah, I handled anything from any onboarding, labor relations,
yeah,
management training, benefits, uh, literally everything. Anything that's human resources related, I basically had my
did
hands
all of
in.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, the only thing I didn't have to do was like when I'd have to go to the courthouse or anything like that. That's when the director would get involved. So
yeah.
usually the
Okay,
director handled the court cases and
yeah.
also
You
helped out
handled
with
the
the
rest of it.
employee relations,
Yeah.
because it was just an abundance of employee relations. So that one we had to share the workload basically.
Okay. All right. What sort of tools and softwares were you using to ensure your efficiency? Because you just mentioned that you were basically handling everything. How were
Yeah.
you ensuring that you were accurate and you were efficient?
So when I was there, we used multiple. Like for our recruiting, we would use Clear Company.
Okay.
And then we would also recruit through like Indeed or LinkedIn. We would use LinkedIn at certain times for like a corporate position.
Okay.
Um, Other softwares that we've used for our HRS system,
Yeah.
we went through Ceridian.
All right.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
before that we were using ADP.
Okay. Okay. All right. So these tools and softwares basically help you be efficient in your job, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your performance goal basically? Did you achieve that? Did you exceed it? And if yes, then by how much? For I think you 2 years, yeah. So for 2 years, you must have had performance reviews, right? So how did you do? What were your goals,
As
and
far as
were
the
you able to
performance
achieve it?
reviews,
Yeah,
Um, my goals was basically to be on top of everything.
yeah,
To be honest with you,
yeah,
because I don't really think there's any way of measuring for human resources. As far as I know, it's
yeah.
basically being able to make sure you're on top of everything, like especially unemployment, because we would deal with unemployment. That's something that we would get on a daily basis, so that's something you had to be on top of. Um, like on a regular basis, but just being there for the company as a whole, which is what I was trying to do as much as I could.
Yeah, okay, but for example, were there any initiatives or something like that that were, or behavior related goals that were mentioned in your performance review, and that you had to, achieve in order to,
Basically, just on the only thing that we got um a review on is basically what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily the efficiency, but the information is correct. That's
yeah.
one thing that they really were on, is making sure that everything was accurate and that we were up to
Okay.
date on everything. Because there
Okay.
wasn't really,
Okay. That's good. Yeah. So other than that, there wasn't really anything really
yeah, there
you had
wasn't
to.
really
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because for instance, some organizations are looking at HR metrics as the new way to basically measure their performance, their department's performance. So that wasn't really the case here, right?
No, it was
There
not
were
the
no
case.
numbers involved, or there were no dashboards involved, nothing like that.
Yeah, there was nothing like that involved. No.
Okay. And what was the organization size for Sprint? Like how many employees?
That one it was, I want to say, about 1,200 employees,
Okay. Okay. All right.
and that was
So,
across like the U.S. also. Well, mainly on the both coasts, like California, New York, Florida.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I get this. All right. For this particular role, can you quantify the improvement that you achieved in operations? For example, did you streamline operations? And if you did achieve some improvement, how much money and time did you think that you saved the company?
Um, that I honestly don't. I seriously don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you on that.
Okay, that's
That
totally
was
fine.
more on the director side. That she didn't really like specify
Yeah.
any stuff like that with me.
And same would be the case for any ROI related increase that you and your director were able to achieve. You don't have the numbers for that?
No, there I didn't have no numbers for that. No.
All right. One thing that I really liked for this position, Conrad, was that you mentioned all of the basic HR functions in subheadings. So that basically actually was showing that you are really qualified for the role of a generalist because you basically covered all the functions um, within HR. So one approach that I was thinking for your resume was this that we mentioned for like a couple of bullets for each subheading. Like for example, onboarding or benefits, employee benefits, and training and development, stuff like that. So it just shows at a glance that you have worked in every area and you are basically an HR generalist.
Right.
So are you okay with that approach? Or if you're not, you can like just tell me that you go with another idea.
Yeah, I was like for that part. I would what for a sprint, correct? No, yeah, for
For,
sprint. That's why I just left it as human resources because, like I said, they didn't really give me the title.
yeah, yeah. Like if I follow the same approach for your other two positions, would that be okay with you, or are you not comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with that. That's the thing.
Okay, so you basically like a resume in which subheadings are not there and they'll just be bullet points, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go with that. So for the first bullet you mentioned under the onboarding part that you directed the onboarding process for 30 to 120 new employees per day.
Correct.
So what was the employee onboarding satisfaction rate? Like how
The
satisfied were the
satisfaction.
employees?
When I came on board, I was able to minimize the time spent on it from it was about 89%, and I was able to lower that to about 15%.
Oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's really impressive. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good figure. So you also advise new staff on completing the process and provide technical support. So what sort of onboarding process issues that you encountered on a daily basis, and how did you overcome these issues? Like what
The
were the
only time
basic challenges that employees faced?
the only time that I faced some challenges is when um like I would say there when we would sponsor um
Yeah.
somebody for eligibility to come to the US. That's the only time that I had issues
Okay.
with that. And dealing with the DHS office,
Yeah.
Department of Homeland Security, just making sure I was constant communication with them,
Okay. Okay.
and ensuring that verifying that everything was accurate, like the forms that were submitted to us was accurate.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And like How many times did you encounter inaccurate forms?
Um, weekly, I would say about 3 a week.
Okay. That's,
Because a lot of
I
times
mean,
too, people like for instance for the DHS office or like the Social Security office,
yeah,
it's something as simple as somebody like for instance on the DH they would mark something as this person was female instead of male, and then they would have to verify, and then the employee would have to actually go to the Social Security office and
yeah.
make the correction and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Also, how did you ensure that new hires did not experience a disconnect between, the corporate brand that
Um,
is
it,
strict and the employer brand?
um, Basically, I just was in constant communication with them and making sure that they had all the tools that they needed.
Okay, so for instance, when you start the onboarding process, did you guide them on what the company
Yes,
culture actually?
yes.
Okay,
I provided
all right,
basically, I broke it down with them, not only in like literature wise, but I would provide them with like a whole presentation on, because everybody has different learning capabilities. So I
yeah,
basically make sure that I did it so they could easily understand, like the brand of the company, um,
yeah.
and basically making sure that they felt welcome and that had a good experience coming on board.
Okay, so you mentioned the presentation bit. Was that a self initiative or was that directed by the boss?
Say it again. Sorry.
You mentioned the presentation part, right? That you used to present to these new hires. So was
Yeah.
that a self initiative at your part,
That's
or
yeah.
was
That's
that
something that
company?
I made up on my own. That's something that I made up on my own.
Okay, that's really great. Were there other initiatives like that? You mentioned that you ensured that the employees feel welcome.
Yeah, I did that with.
Did you go out of your way? Did you partner them with
Yeah.
some
Oh yeah. I always make sure
other?
I made
Yeah.
my way out because, as long as yeah, I always went out of my way to make sure that they felt like they had everything down, and especially when coming on board, I just want to make sure I start them on the right foot.
Can you share some examples of some other initiatives that you took that were
Um,
not really directed
like
by the company?
some of the issues was like a language barrier, and then I would try to like help them out and make sure that they understood, and then I would
Okay.
go do like a Skype meeting, and then I would go with them so I could see what they're doing and talk over them with the phone to make sure that they understood what they were actually doing.
Okay, that's great. And
And
that was
that's
your self initiative.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You also mentioned that yeah, you ensure that all I-9 forms are properly completed and verified through e-verify. How did you ensure that? What was your process that you followed or strategy, for example, to ensure
Basically,
complete?
yeah, basically I had my daily list that I went through, and I would do this
Okay.
proactively, and I would do it like at least 3 days ahead of time, making sure that I had all the information that I needed, from the employee, and then I would go ahead and process them
Okay.
through e-verify and making sure that all their information is saved not only in the shared files but also on the HRIS system.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So for the next bullet, record keeping, you mentioned that you manage record retention and organization in both human resources and finance. How finance? How were you involved with that department
For finance,
for record
like
retention?
it's basically like the same thing. Deal like when I have to do like the prorations for their benefits or if there are any withholdings, like for taxes and stuff like that. That's when I would go
Yeah.
into because it was a shared system that we used for the HRS system. It not only
Yeah.
was it for HR, but it was also for payroll as well.
Okay. Okay. And what tools and methods did you adopt for record organization?
For record
Like,
keeping, we basically just use the shared drive to
okay,
make sure that everything is like we have two ways of saving the information. One on the HIS system, which was Ceridian, and then the second is everything was shared on the shared drive.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And for the benefits part, you mentioned that you enrolled and administered all health and medical details and explained various options to employees. You you also mentioned that you enrolled former employees in Cobra as necessary. So why was
Because
there a need to enroll former employees?
for California law, all
Yeah.
employees have option to enroll for COBRA for health insurance.
Okay, so like, why were the former employees not enrolled beforehand?
If the employee was terminated because it was mandated that people still had to have insurance. So
Yeah,
we gave the option to sign up for COBRA insurance.
yeah.
Basically, once the person has been terminated or anything like that, or laid off, they are given the option to enroll into COBRA.
Okay, okay,
No, they
that's
don't
fine.
necessarily have to. If
Yeah.
they choose, then we would enter in all their information onto Cobra, and they would go still collect, or not collect, but they would still have health insurance through Cobra, but not us. So
Okay,
we would
yeah,
provide Cobra with all their information.
yeah. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Yes. Can you quote an instance where you went above and beyond your role to help an employee in need of urgent healthcare uh,
Um,
through your assistance?
yeah. So basically, like it was this something that I saw a lot when somebody was just in need. Like for instance, this person was in an accident and they